Hi, this is Dave Cox, founder of FirmoGraphs. Welcome to our video log on the FirmoGraphs Climate Mart. We have an exciting demonstration to share today on how to use business intelligence, or BI, to find stories in your critical industry data. And as I mentioned, today we'll be focused on our Climate Mart. The original data before we improved it came from the EPA. And as background, each spring, facilities that emit more than 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalents need to report their emissions under the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. And according to the EPA, this covers roughly half of US emissions, around 3 billion tons economy-wide. Irrespective of your personal and professional beliefs, emission accounting and reporting matters. If you're in industry, it matters because the public, NGOs, and institutional investors care about these numbers. It matters because of the regulatory and political uncertainty and ever-evolving strategies that industrial organizations are making with respect to their climate emissions. In the next few minutes, I'm going to build a dashboard from this data I've been discussing in our chosen BI tool, which is ClickSense Enterprise. I'm going to start with a blank sheet, and by the time we're done, you'll have a configured dashboard to look at. The only thing I did in advance was set up the data names. If this was a cooking show, it would be like chopping the onions backstage, because naming data fields is important, but not that interesting. You'll see that I configured some master dimensions and measures. Now, dimensions are the things we're interested in. For example, the organizations and sites that have greenhouse gas emissions, the US state location where those emissions are happening, and the industry the site belongs to. Measures are the values attached to those dimensions. So for example, you can count the number of dimensions like the number of sites, and counting the sites itself makes a measure. Or you can calculate a measure, such as the sum of emissions. Now that we've defined our dimensions and measures, chopped our onions so to speak, it's time to cook our meal. First, we're going to add a filter. A filter lets you select dimensions. So every time you make a selection, once the filter is configured, you'll be narrowing down the data that you see in the BI. So I'll add state, industry, organization, and year to start. This is a fantastic way to sift through millions of records in seconds. And this BI tool, ClickSense Enterprise, stores the data in memory. The reason that this matters is that you'll see the system respond immediately. You can navigate your data at the speed of thought. Next, we'll add a simple table. Everybody's familiar with tables, and of course you need them in your BI solution. So dragging in our one dimension, organization name, and two measures, 2017 emissions and sites reporting, you can see how easy it is to add a new visualization to your dashboard. Now that we have our filter and table, I'll go ahead and add some KPIs. And what's a good dashboard without key performance indicators, right? The BI tool is smart enough to know that if I'm dragging a measure on the sheet, it should be a KPI. So you'll see both of these measures become KPIs as I add them. Finally, I'll sort my filter values by measure, and in this case I'll pick emissions. The items with the highest emissions will be at the top of the list. In this case, it's Texas for the state, and fossil-fueled power generation for the industry. So this is a good time to pause in our cooking show and taste the sauce. Any dimension you select acts as a filter. If you choose the top 3 states, for example, you can see that those contributed about 750 million tons of emissions in 2017. This is about 25% of that 3 billion total. Looking at my table, I can see a list of the organizations contributing to emissions in those states. Now, if I pick the top 5 industries in those states, I can see that the top 5 industries in the top 3 states contribute a bit more than 20% of the emissions nationwide. You can see how much easier it is to navigate and find the stories in your data using BI. This started off as thousands of rows in data in a big bundle of spreadsheets, and nothing stands out in that mass of data. We're just starting and we could already find some trends and stories. In the next couple of minutes to wrap up my demonstration, I'm going to share two more exciting visualizations. First, a Sankey chart, and next, a map. First, the Sankey chart. One of our customers described the Sankey chart as a vertical pie chart. And to share a personal bias, I love Sankeys and hate pie charts. So Sankey charts let you see how different dimensions relate as long as they share a common measure. These visualizations really help you understand what would otherwise be complex data relationships, such as the total emissions for fossil-fueled power plants and how they're apportioned to 3 different states. Anytime you're dealing with data that can be spatially represented, like emissions from sites, it just begs to have a map. With maps in ClickSense Enterprise, you can choose different layer styles. And for site level emissions, I'll pick the density layer option. We have lat and long for the sites, and that neatly places them on a map. Naturally, you have some choices on how to represent the data, and we'll go ahead and make the density based on emissions. That's it for today's demonstration. We've just scratched the surface today in terms of available data and functionality within the BI solution. But you've seen that our solution includes the ClickSense BI software and our data mart, in this case the climate mart, ready for use. You can also mash up this data against your own internal data sources, whether that's industrial operations data or sales and marketing information. Industry customers are using Climate Mart to look at the public view of their own operations and to benchmark against industry peers. Consultants use Climate Mart to better understand this segment of the US environmental market and to serve their customers better. I hope this has whetted your appetite and that we'll have a chance to show you more. Please click below to subscribe.